The Galactic Council watched in disbelief as Earth declared war on the mighty Vorkarian Empire. Just hours earlier, Admiral Eugene Murphy had entered the chambers in a rage, interrupting a heated debate. The topic: the Vorkarians' ruthless and unprovoked annihilation of a defenseless human farming colony. Thousands of innocent civilians were massacred. Vorkarian warships fired on fleeing, unarmed transports loaded with terrified families. No warnings, no demands, just an orgy of indiscriminate slaughter and destruction. The Council, long dismissive of the primitive humans, seemed unmoved by the atrocity. But to Eugene, their apathy was as vile as the attack itself. This council has stood idle for too long while the Vorkarians terrorized those weaker than them, he accused, his voice shaking with barely restrained fury. But hear this. That ends today. Corvus, the Vorkarian delegate, smirked and leaned back in his chair. The humans were expanding into our territory. We simply defended our interests. I fail to see why this council should intervene in a matter between us and an inferior species. Eugene glared at him. Then you admit the attack was deliberate. I admit your people need a lesson about the dangers of provoking your betters. Consider this a warning. Further encroachment will be met with force. A warning? Eugene slammed a fist on the table. Is that what you call slaughtering thousands of defenseless civilians? Bombing hospitals? Shooting down lifeboats? There were children on those ships. The council members exchanged uneasy glances as Eugene composed himself. We may have come late to the galactic stage, but do not mistake that for weakness. We learn quickly. We adapt. Your advanced weapons, your ships, we've taken them apart, studied them, improved them, and now we will use them. A low muttering swept through the chamber, but Corvus only laughed. You expect us to believe backwards apes like you could even turn on our technology, let alone match it? You humans are delusional. Everyone here knows the might of the Vorkarian armada is unrivaled. Eugene smiled coldly. You're right about one thing, Counselor. The civilized races represented here are quite familiar with Vorkarian capabilities. And all your dirty little secrets. Suddenly, the main view screen lit up with detailed schematics of Vorkarian ships, troop placements, even classified communiques between their military leaders. The council erupted into shocked gasps and shouting. Corvus shot to his feet. What is the meaning of this? How did you get those files? You have traitors in your midst, it seems. A problem you can solve on your own time. Eugene turned to the agitated delegates. As for the rest of you, Earth has a message. We came to you in friendship, but you shunned us. Now we come in vengeance. Any further act of Vorkarian aggression will be considered an act of war, not just against Earth, but against all humans everywhere. A second display flashed to life, and a gray-haired man appeared, his face grave. I'm Jonathan Ackerman, President of the United Earth Government. 2 hours ago, I asked this council to condemn the Vorkarian Empire for its crimes. I was refused. As of this moment, an official state of war exists between the Human Federation and the Vorkarian Empire. As the transmission ended, Eugene addressed a visibly rattled Corvus. The Armada will stand down, withdraw from human space, and make reparations. Otherwise, we will systematically destroy every Vorkarian colony, outpost, and fleet we encounter until your homeworld itself is a burning cinder. This is your only warning. With that, he spun and marched from the chamber, a long silence in his wake. Then a panicked babble erupted as the implications sank in. Corvus stormed out, his face pale. He had to alert the Emperor that the human threat was not only real, but imminent. For the first time in centuries, the Vorkarian war machine faced an enemy that might be its technological equal, and was driven by a terrible, ruthless vengeance. The shockwaves of this day would shake the foundations of a galaxy long complacent under Vorkarian domination. A new and mighty race had stepped onto the battlefield. There would be a reckoning. 628. In the aftermath of Earth's shocking declaration of war, the Vorkarian Empire wasted no time mobilizing its vast armada. Corvus, still reeling from the humiliation inflicted upon him at the Galactic Council, vowed to crush the human resistance swiftly and decisively. Hundreds of warships, overflowing with advanced weaponry, converged on Earth, intent on delivering a devastating preemptive strike. But as the Vorkarian fleet closed in, they found themselves facing an unexpected and formidable foe. Admiral Eugene Murphy and Earth's military leaders had anticipated the enemy's move and prepared a daring counterattack. Utilizing a secret weapon reverse-engineered from captured alien technology, the humans unleashed a squadron of stealth fighters, rendered invisible to Vorkarian sensors by a revolutionary cloaking device. Leading the charge was Captain Jack Riker, an ace pilot renowned for his unparalleled skills and daring maneuvers. With Riker at the helm, the human fighters slipped past the Vorkarian defenses undetected, weaving through the enemy formation with breathtaking precision. Suddenly, they struck at the heart of the fleet, targeting the massive Vorkarian command ship. Corvus, aboard the bridge of his flagship, could only watch in disbelief as the human fighters darted around his vessel, evading every attempt to lock onto them. Riker and his squadron unleashed a barrage of surgical strikes, disabling the command ship's weapons systems and propulsion with pinpoint accuracy. Explosions rippled across the hull as consoles sparked and crew members shouted in panic. As the Vorkarian fleet descended into chaos, a second wave of human ships emerged from hyperspace, catching the enemy in a devastating pincer maneuver. These vessels, equipped with cutting-edge energy weapons capable of penetrating Vorkarian shields, tore through the disorganized enemy ranks with ruthless efficiency. The tide of battle turned rapidly in favor of the humans, as the advanced weapons wreaked havoc on the once mighty Vorkarian armada. On the surface of the planet below, human ground forces clashed with Vorkarian troops in fierce close-quarters combat. The human soldiers, clad in powered exoskeletons and wielding advanced weaponry, demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability. They outmaneuvered the technologically superior but rigid Vorkarian forces, employing unconventional tactics that caught the enemy off guard. Amidst the chaos of battle, Sergeant Max Fletcher led a hand-picked team of Special Forces operatives on a critical mission. They infiltrated a heavily guarded Vorkarian military installation, fighting their way through layers of defenses with unyielding commitment. Their objective was to sabotage the planet's orbital defenses and communication array, cutting off the Vorkarians' ability to call for reinforcements. As Fletcher and his team planted explosives and hacked into the enemy's systems, the Vorkarian troops closed in, determined to stop them at any cost. The human soldiers fought with a ferocity born of desperation, knowing that the fate of their species hung in the balance. Despite heavy resistance, they managed to complete their mission, crippling the Vorkarian infrastructure and paving the way for a full-scale invasion. With the orbital defenses neutralized, Admiral Murphy seized the opportunity to land additional troops and establish a forward operating base on the planet's surface. The human forces secured control of a crucial Vorkarian spaceport, providing a vital foothold for further operations. As the battle raged on, the Vorkarian High Command found itself confronted with a grim reality. They had severely underestimated human capabilities. Corvus, struggling to rally his beleaguered forces, received an unexpected message from Eugene Murphy himself, extending an offer for a ceasefire and negotiations. Faced with the choice between a prolonged, bloody conflict and the chance to end hostilities, the Vorkarian leadership grudgingly agreed to talks. However, mistrust and tension remained high as both sides maneuvered to strengthen their positions, unsure of the other's true motives. As Eugene Murphy and Corvus prepared for their fateful face-to-face meeting, the galaxy held its collective breath. The future of both species hung in the balance, and the outcome of the negotiations would determine whether peace could be achieved or if the conflict would escalate into an even greater conflagration that would reshape the very fabric of the galactic order. The negotiations commenced in a sterile, high-security conference room aboard a neutral space station. Eugene Murphy and Corvus sat across from each other, their faces etched with tension and mistrust. The air crackled with unspoken accusations. "Let's cut the bullshit," Eugene growled. "We both know you're here to stall for time while your fleet regroups." Corvus's mandibles clicked in agitation. Rich words from a species that hid their true capabilities. For all we know, you have more secret weapons pointed at our homeworld as we speak. The verbal sparring continued, neither side willing to give an inch. After hours of fruitless debate, Eugene leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "This is getting us nowhere," he said. "We need an impartial mediator. I propose we bring in the elder race." Corvus's eyes narrowed. "The ancients. They haven't involved themselves in galactic affairs for millennia." "Exactly. No one can accuse them of taking sides." Reluctantly, Corvus nodded his assent. Within hours, 3 luminous beings materialized in the conference room. Their forms shimmered with an otherworldly energy that commanded instant respect. The negotiations began anew. Corvus presented his case, gesturing at star charts. The humans were expanding aggressively. We had no choice but to strike first. One of the elders waved a translucent appendage, and a holographic display sprang to life. It showed the attacked human colony, clearly within established borders. "This evidence is irrefutable," the elder intoned. "The attack was unprovoked and illegal under galactic law." Corvus slumped in his seat, defeated. I cannot deny it." Eugene seized the moment. "We'll agree to a ceasefire and withdraw our forces, but we demand reparations for the lives lost." A heated debate erupted over the sum. Corvus smacked his palm on the table. "This figure would bankrupt us." The elders conferred silently, then produced a new number. "This amount is fair and within your means," they declared. Both leaders grudgingly accepted. Days passed as they haggled over territorial boundaries. The elders patiently mediated, brokering complex exchanges of systems and resources until a mutually acceptable arrangement was reached. Just as it seemed they'd found common ground, Corvus dropped a bombshell. "We demand the complete dismantling of human military forces. Their technological leap is too great a threat." Eugene shot to his feet. "Absolutely not! We have the right to defend ourselves." The room erupted into chaos until one of the elders raised a glowing hand. "We propose an alternative. A galactic peacekeeping force, composed of all races, overseen by us." Silence fell as both sides considered the implications. Finally, Eugene spoke. "It's not ideal, but it could work." Corvus nodded slowly. "We accept this compromise." With that final hurdle cleared, the peace treaty was ratified. As Eugene and Corvus shook hands, their eyes met. Both saw the lingering doubts and resentments that simmered beneath the surface. They knew the real work was just beginning. The galaxy watched and waited, unsure if this fragile peace would hold or shatter at the slightest provocation. The fragile peace that had held for years shattered like glass. General Marcus Trask stood before a sea of disgruntled human soldiers, his voice booming through the underground bunker. "For too long, we've cowered under the thumb of alien oppressors." Trask's fist slammed against the podium. "No more!" The crowd roared its approval as Trask unveiled schematics of advanced weaponry. Sleek fighters and massive warships filled the screens, each dripping with firepower that put their treaty-sanctioned counterparts to shame. "We built these in secret right under their noses," Trask grinned, "and now we'll use them to take back what's ours." Alarms blared through the complex. A young lieutenant burst into the room, face pale. "Sir, the peacekeepers, they're here." Trask's eyes narrowed. "So they found us out. No matter. Initiate Protocol Omega." Chaos erupted as Trask's loyalists sprang into action. The peacekeeping force never stood a chance. Caught off guard by the sheer firepower of Trask's hidden arsenal, they were cut down in droves. Admiral Eugene Murphy watched in horror as reports flooded in. Military bases across human space fell to Trask's coup in a matter of hours. When Murphy's comm chirped, he found himself face to face with the rebel leader. "Stand down, Eugene," Trask sneered. "Your time is over." Murphy's eyes sharp. "Marcus, please. This madness will undo everything we've worked for." "Save your platitudes for the history books," Trask spat. "I'm taking humanity down the path you were too weak to follow." The feed cut out, replaced moments later by a galaxy-wide broadcast. Trask's face filled screens across a dozen worlds as he declared the peace treaty null and void. On a Vorkarian colony world, all hell broke loose. The sky lit up as Trask's fleet dropped out of hyperspace, raining death upon unsuspecting cities. Corvus, the former Vorkarian ambassador, found himself thrust into the role of impromptu general. "Get those civilians to the shelters," Corvus bellowed, ducking as another explosion rocked the command center. "Where are our planetary defenses?" A junior officer's mandibles clacked nervously. "Offline, sir. They've jammed our systems." Corvus banged his head against a console. "Contact the homeworld. We need reinforcements." "Long-range comms are down," came the grim reply. "We're on our own." As hope faded, a lone human warship punched through the debris field of destroyed Vorkarian vessels. Admiral Murphy's voice crackled over the emergency frequencies. "This is Admiral Eugene Murphy of Earth. We're here to assist with evacuations. Corvus, do you copy?" Corvus's eyes widened in disbelief. "Murphy? What in blazes are you doing here?" "Trying to clean up this mess," Murphy replied grimly. "Can you coordinate your ground forces to funnel civilians toward these coordinates? We'll provide cover fire and evac shuttles." As Murphy's ships engaged Trask's forces, buying precious time, Corvus organized a desperate defense. Vorkarian troops fought street by street, holding the line as terrified colonists fled toward the human evacuation points. Aboard his flagship, Trask watched the battle unfold with mounting frustration. "Murphy," he snarled, "always the damn Boy Scout. Fine, if it's a fight he wants, it's a fight he'll get." Trask's voice boomed across the battlefield. "Eugene Murphy, face me ship to ship. Winner takes all. Or are you too much of a coward to risk it all for your precious aliens?" Murphy's response was immediate. "I'll see you in hell, Trask." The two fleets clashed in a titanic battle, energy weapons slicing through hulls as fighter squadrons dueled in the spaces between. Murphy's smaller force fought with desperate courage, but Trask's technological edge began to tell. Just as all seemed lost, Murphy's flagship executed a daring maneuver, ramming Trask's command ship. The hull buckled, and a strike team led by Captain Jack Riker breached the enemy vessel. Riker and his team fought their way through twisting corridors, cutting down Trask's elite guards. They reached the bridge and found themselves face to face with the traitor himself. "It's over, Trask," Riker growled, leveling his weapon. Trask sneered, reaching for a hidden switch. "Oh, I don't think—" A blast rocked the ship. Outside, a massive Vorkarian fleet dropped out of hyperspace, led by none other than Corvus himself. Murphy's battered vessels found themselves suddenly reinforced as the Vorkarians tore into Trask's forces with a vengeance. The Admiral allowed himself a grim smile, realizing the cunning play Corvus had made, letting the humans deal with their own problem while honoring the spirit of their alliance. The tide of battle turned in an instant, Trask's technological advantage negated by the sheer numbers and fury of the Vorkarian armada. Murphy's gambit had paid off, but the cost had been high. As the last of Trask's ships fell silent, Murphy knew that the real work of rebuilding trust had only just begun. The void of space erupted in a cacophony of destruction. Admiral Murphy's fleet found itself caught in a deadly crossfire as Corvus's Vorkarian armada dropped out of hyperspace, weapons blazing. Murphy's tactical display lit up with a sea of red as enemy signatures swarmed his beleaguered forces. "Sir, we've got multiple contacts," shouted his tactical officer. "The Vorkarians are engaging both us and Trask's fleet." Murphy's eyes narrowed as he studied the chaotic battle unfolding before him. "Corvus, you treacherous bastard," he muttered. Aboard Trask's command ship, alarms blared as Captain Riker and his strike team fought their way through twisting corridors. The deck shuddered beneath their feet as Vorkarian weapons fire pummeled the hull. "Push forward!" Riker bellowed, his rifle spitting death at Trask's elite guards. The Marines surged ahead, using overturned consoles and twisted bulkheads for cover. Private Rodriguez lobbed a stun grenade, its detonation allowing Corporal Chen to flank their opponents. One by one, Trask's men fell to the relentless assault. As they breached the command deck, Riker came face to face with General Trask himself. The traitor towered over him, encased in a matte black exosuit that hummed with lethal energy. "You're too late, Riker," Trask sneered, his amplified voice booming through the smoke-filled bridge. "The age of cowards and alien lovers is over." Trask lunged forward with inhuman speed, his armored fist slamming into Riker's chest and sending him flying across the room. The captain crashed into a bank of monitors, his ribs creaking in protest. "Is that all you've got?" Riker spat blood and struggled to his feet. He fired his rifle, but the energy bolts splashed harmlessly off Trask's armor. The general laughed, advancing with measured steps. "My turn," Trask growled. Just as the general raised his arm to deliver a killing blow, Private Foster, mortally wounded in the earlier firefight, dragged himself to his feet. With trembling hands, he primed a cluster of breaching charges. "For Earth," Foster whispered and detonated the explosives. The blast rocked the command deck, shredding Trask's exosuit and flinging Riker clear of the inferno. When the smoke cleared, Trask lay motionless, his once mighty armor a smoking ruin. Meanwhile, Admiral Murphy's flagship shuddered as Vorkarian weapons tore through its defenses. Coolant lines ruptured, bathing entire decks in scalding vapor. The bridge sparked and sizzled as systems failed one by one. "Admiral!" his XO shouted over the din. "We've lost main power. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Murphy's face was grim as he keyed the ship-wide comm. "All hands abandon ship. I repeat, all hands abandon ship." As the crew scrambled for escape pods, Murphy took one last look at his tactical display. He allowed himself a grim smile as he saw his ship's final salvo streak towards Corvus's flagship. The Vorkarian vessel's shields buckled under the barrage. A secondary explosion tore through its command section, venting atmosphere and debris into the void. In that instant, Corvus and his senior staff were obliterated. Hours later, as the last embers of battle cooled, Murphy found himself aboard a Vorkarian cruiser, facing down their surviving commanders. The admiral's uniform was scorched, his face etched with fatigue and sorrow. "Corvus is dead," Murphy stated flatly, "as is Trask. We've all paid a heavy price for this madness." The Vorkarian captain's mandibles clicked in agitation. "And what now, human? Shall we continue this dance of death until both our peoples are dust?" Murphy shook his head. "No, we withdraw, all of us, back to our own territories to lick our wounds and count our dead." As the battered fleets limped away from the graveyard of broken ships and broken dreams, Murphy stared out at the stars. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the eye of the storm, a brief respite before an even greater tempest engulfed them all.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.